Good afternoon to you. Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack.com here with your hurricane outlook and discussion. The last one for the 2018 hurricane season, November 26, 2018. Of course, the hurricane season still has 4 more days left in it, but this will be the last official outlook video. I'll do some looking back, a summary of what we had this season, and then we'll look ahead at some of the things that I look at and keep monitoring during the off season. A week from today, this will become the off-season edition of the Hurricane Outlook and Discussion. For those of you that have been subscribed to my YouTube channel or have followed along for the last few years, you know that I do not turn the lights out and shut everything off from December 1st through May 31st. No, not at all. There's always something to talk about, different larger puzzle pieces that we keep an eye on for the upcoming hurricane season, and severe weather, winter storms, coastal storms, whatever. Always something going on. So starting next Monday, this will have the off-season edition moniker added, and it's going to be done live for our Patreon subscribers and our HurricaneTrack Insider subscribers. And then once it's done live, it'll be saved, obviously, and then I'll post it publicly for YouTube for everybody else. So if you are a Patreon patron, tune in next week because it's going to be live. I'll be posting more about that on the Patreon app and site, so you'll know when approximately to tune in and so forth. So some exciting things coming as we wrap up this season and get ready for, as soon as we're done with one season, we're always getting ready for the next. And what a busy season it was. It was not quite hyperactive, obviously, but busy enough. 15 named storms, 8 hurricanes. 2 of those 8 hurricanes became Category 3 or higher. Which ones were those? That would be Florence right here, and then, of course, Michael over here. Quite a hodgepodge of the subtropical systems in the central Atlantic over here, and most of the energy, the intensity, the ACE points, which is just under 130. ACE is accumulated cyclone energy. Most of that energy was scored in this area, generally out of the deep tropics, which is a contradiction to what we had last year. Last year, most of the energy was attained in the deep tropics down here with those powerful Category 5s that we had. This year, it was the opposite. It was up here, generally in the subtropics or out of the tropics. And that was very well telegraphed ahead of time and seen by folks such as Joe Bastardi and his team over at WeatherBell. I want to give credit where credit is due. Maybe some other people saw that as well, but WeatherBell did a great job. And I want to just show you real quick the table here on Wikipedia of the forecast activity. TSR is tropical storm risk. CSU is Colorado State University back last December and this past April. Both of those entities were pretty close with their forecasts. So had they just stuck to that, they would have been pretty close. But nope, they have to adjust. And as we go along, you see TSR here by May, and then in especially July. Boy, they really blew it, 9, 4, and 1. I don't mean to laugh at them like I'm trolling them or anything, but it's like, yeah, I think a lot of these agencies and entities, companies, whatever, jumped on the El Nino bandwagon and the cold Atlantic and just didn't open the window and look out to see what was actually happening, that the Atlantic was starting to warm again. The El Nino wasn't coming on. So instead of assuming what's going to happen down the road based on some powerful climate model, we won't name any, but which ended up being wrong. There was no El Nino. It's coming on now, but it's the end of the season. It's just like, all right, bottom line, these numbers here are not very helpful, in my opinion. And I do like what, for example, Joe has been doing with where the intensity and the tracks are likely to be occurring. I like that. And then we saw a lot of that sub-seasonal forecasting, which was very well telegraphed from folks like Ben Knoll. Ben Knoll Weather, I talk about him frequently on Twitter. Eric Webb as well with the ENSO, El Nino Southern Oscillation, the upward motion. So I just think, hey, don't worry about the numbers, because even if you got them exactly right, that never would have told us anything about slow-moving, flooding Florence or menacing Michael. I'm starting to sound like a certain president that we know that likes to give names to everything. But honestly, people, that nobody would have known that those were coming. Last year with Harvey, if you'd have correctly guessed how many named storms and hurricanes, you never would have been able to know that Harvey was going to stall out and dump all that rain, or that Irma would be a Category 5 for as long as it was, devastating all of those islands like it did. So toss the numbers, in my opinion, and start telling us, what do we expect, generally speaking, for the hurricane season? What region might be at peril? I don't know. I mean, something that's a little bit more helpful rather than, I'm guessing, based on all of these predictors, 19 named storms, 8 hurricanes, and 4 majors. What do we do with that? That's just my 2 cents. I'm not knocking the attempt. I just think that the focus should be more on impact and like what Joe is doing at Weather Bell, with where the intensity is likely to occur. All right, so almost the last day of the season. That's coming up on the 30th. What do we got out there? Well, what do we got is a lot of southwesterly wind, as you would expect this time of year. Fronts coming in, the jet stream active, cold air pouring down out of Canada, strong ocean storms out here, these mid-latitude systems. I mean, it looks like an ex-hurricane, doesn't it? Pretty impressive. It's not going to be long. I keep saying that, but eventually we're going to get one of these that's going to come right up the coast over here. I was trying to relate the fact that just take that and superimpose it to the East Coast. Maybe later in the month of December we shall see some of those climate models that I was talking about. We see Ben Knoll talking about, and others, indicating probably a very busy February, East Coast storm-wise, and that seems to be the norm. February is very much like the September is to the hurricane season. So this is part of what I look at in the off-season. Any big-ticket weather events that may be coming up. We certainly could use the rain out west. We saw the devastation out there. Any coastal storms that get their origins over the Gulf and then move up off the East Coast. Severe weather outbreaks in the spring, and then any major cold snaps that are coming. Just part of the whole awareness and making sure you're understanding in our busy lives what's happening with the weather. And then along the way, yes, we will look at things related to next year's hurricane season. And one of these puzzle pieces that I refer to that at least gives us some guidance as to what to look for. And that would be sea surface temperatures and, perhaps more importantly, their departures from normal or average, what we call the anomalies. And so this updates a couple times a week here. I use the NOAA-NESDIS method, and this is the latest update from the 26th. And what do I see? Well, generally, the Atlantic here, the deep tropics, into the northeast Atlantic, colder than average. If that stuck around all through next season and never abated like we saw this year where it warmed up again, then yes, you would expect a slacker Cape Verde season, a lower overall number of hurricanes. That still won't tell you if you're going to get a Michael or a Florence. Just a word of caution there. We also see this El Nino trying to grow. It didn't happen in July, August, and September like a lot of the folks who lowered their forecasts substantially thought. It's coming on now, and this will have some interesting implications. And during the off-season discussions, I will have via Skype a few guests to come on, and when I do these live updates, we'll pull them up on the big computer monitor. It'll be like they're sitting here with me in the office, and we're going to talk about El Nino, what it could mean for the northern hemisphere, and specifically the lower 48 weather coming up, and what to look for in terms of how long will it linger. Will it be heading into next year's hurricane season, and maybe putting a damper from that perspective. Why? Just real quick, because warmer water here generally means more southwesterly winds here, coming out of the Caribbean and cutting across the Atlantic. It doesn't affect the Gulf of Mexico so much. It's almost like it's its own area. INSO, El Nino Southern Oscillation, usually doesn't impact the Gulf. So this is a neat tool that we will look at a couple of times per month, the subsurface anomalies. And as you can see here from this animation, as it goes through time, the heart of the warmest water over here on the eastern side, this represents the eastern Pacific over here, pretty good little E, and there's the western Pacific over here. The top is the surface, and then we go down 400 plus meters deep. So this is like a scan or a profile. It's not really, but this is just a way to explain it, showing you a slice of what the subsurface anomalies are. And the warmest water relative to average is way over here in the eastern Pacific. And I look at this and think, okay, well, that's where the warmest is. Over here in the Westpac, there's not any reinforcing warm pools coming, and usually they move from west to east like this, but not so fast. We look at some of these smart people that I talk about, all right? Tyler, here, Tyler Stanfield, he's at, does this do the pop-up? Yes. OU Meteorology, I love that. When you want to know something, you just mouse over it. OU Meteorology student, this one of these people, I've said this a lot of times, I don't know everything, and if I did, I would retire, because there would be nothing else to learn, and I'd start something new. Probably microbiology or something. That fascinates me too. Viruses and things like that. But that's not going to happen, so we don't have to worry about it. And so I rely on folks like Tyler and Ben and Eric Webb and others, Dr. Ventris, even Joe, many, many other people that you learn something from them. That collective knowledge is out there. And so Tyler mentions in this tweet, we're almost officially to the El Nino. It's a matter of the agencies in charge of such things officially declaring it. And it looks like from this graphic here, and let me try to explain this, that another significant westerly wind burst, and the best way to describe this, let's use a color that will stick out here, maybe black. So here is 60 degrees west longitude, there's 120 west longitude, 180, and then you get 120 east. So this is the globe, kind of flattened out on a piece of paper, if you will. And then this is your time scale over here on the left. And the forecast begins here. And so this is what's happened in the past, and this is what's coming, okay? And so that being said, the blues generally indicate fairly strong easterly trade winds. That's what these blues show. And that's what we have generally had in the Atlantic basin, with a slackening of the trades. That's what the reds generally show, a slowing down, or westerly winds even, as indicated by these reds. There was a period here where we had a pretty good burst of easterlies, but a large, fairly, look at this, we're talking from parts of the southwest Caribbean maybe, all the way over to the dateline, all the way across, if you look at the Pacific anyway, and try to picture this on a map. Whoops, I bumped the desk trying to talk with my hands. This is a basin-wide event, so a huge westerly wind burst coming that, if this comes to fruition, will reinforce and send more of this warmer water downward, if you will, a downwelling event. And that's what Tyler mentions in the rest of his tweet here. If we can go back, reinforcing westerly wind burst, forecast to enhance downwelling across the eastern equatorial Pacific. Strengthening of this event through winters appear likely as the atmosphere responds further. And we can see that with the CDAS version of the anomalies. This is just a different data set to create the anomaly chart. Very warm in the Pacific. And it's interesting because it dropped a little bit, and that was from those blues that I was showing you through here. And then you see the reds coming back, that the index is headed back up again, the Nino 3.4 area. Bottom line for you and me, El Nino is coming on, and this will likely get redder through here, and through the winter, it looks like we will be in an El Nino. So we'll talk more about what that means coming up soon, hopefully in the month of December. All right, actual sea surface temperatures, we'll peruse this from time to time. I like to gauge where the 26 degrees Celsius isotherm, that's roughly 80 degrees Fahrenheit, rounded up anyway, and it goes like that. So anything south of this line is still warm enough to support hurricanes. Why don't we have hurricanes in the Caribbean in December? Well, because generally the winds are screaming out of the southwest from the lowering of the overall jet stream. Everything moves farther to the south. You have a lot more dry air. The tropical waves aren't as robust. You can have the warm water, and it stays warm down in this region pretty much all year long, but other factors mitigate and go against tropical cyclone development. Once in a while, you get something, and you never know. Now, to me, this is also very interesting. The west wall of the Gulf Stream right here. Let's get a different color so it shows up. Something that's maybe the color white. West wall of the Gulf Stream right here. So just offshore Cape Hatteras, Cape Fear, and even Myrtle Beach and Charleston down there. And that gradient, the difference in temperature over distance, is starting to increase because these shelf water temperatures right in here getting quite chilly as we're getting lows in the 30s at night now, and then the Gulf Stream itself, though, staying warm. I kid you not, if you got in that little boat, right, or probably a big boat, and went out into this little pool right here, that's 27 Celsius, that little island right there. That's 81 Fahrenheit, folks. You know, that's got to feel good. And I bet the color out there is beautiful, probably a deep blue. And who knows what kind of fish are out there. Anybody that knows that, comment on it in the YouTube comments, man. I'd love to hear. I've never been out there. I bet that's fascinating. I like to watch it because, yeah, when you get some of these storms coming through, what we call the genesis, bombogenesis sometimes, they take advantage of that very warm water, and then they deepen on the way up to the benchmark up here, and bam, you get these very, very strong cyclones that look a lot like that guy right there. But they'll be sitting right there. That's coming, and I'll be there for it when it happens. Lower 48 weather for today. This is the other thing that I look at, as I mentioned. I want to make sure people are aware. I'm not the substitute for the Weather Channel or your favorite weather person on television or the internet, but I just like to bring things to your attention. And again, my main focus is to track the evolution of potential storms, especially for this region. Maybe flooding concerns, you never know. We do have these amazing camera systems that I can deploy in anything, except maybe those wildfires. That just scares me too much, honestly. So we'll be watching out for that. At least today, generally speaking, the weather on the whole is fairly calm. A little bit of wintry issues up here in the northeast. Freeze watches and whatever down for the southeast. Good. Get rid of the mosquitoes and some of the other flying critters that way, at least temporarily. It'll be in the 30s coming up, and then the 70s again soon thereafter. The sidewalk crack business alive and well in the southeast. All right, what do the next 2 weeks look like? This is the GFS for North America. You see this one storm system that's moving through today. Another one coming into the Pacific Northwest. Hooray, hooray. More rain and mountain snows. But no major, blockbuster. That's a pretty good one way up here in the Canadian Maritimes. But for U.S. interests, I can't get up there, unfortunately. Very, very costly, kind of hard to do. But, yeah, Newfoundland and off the coast of Nova Scotia, pretty active period for you guys. But for the lower 48, the occasional storm system rolls across the country and then exits, bringing plenty of moisture to the southeast. And I will say this, very, very good to see that, because we need as much rain in this area as possible over the next several years so that that forest can start to grow back that Michael mowed over. And I'm going to really be watching that closely. Right now there's almost no concern because it's been so wet on a regular basis. If we see drought conditions settle in the southeast, we get a big-time La Nina develop, that could prove very problematic. Nothing to worry about right now, but just one of those things, that legacy of powerful Hurricane Michael will live on for generations, if not just for the forest down there that was destroyed. A good deal of it absolutely flattened. And I want to show you that real quick. My season started. I wanted to save some good stuff for you for the end here. In Mexico Beach. Did you realize that? It did. Alberto was the first, and it was the end of May, and it had me along the Florida Panhandle. This was one of my position updates that I did, that I was sending to somebody. They're like, where are you? I said, shh, there you go. That's where I am. I had stopped right along the side of the highway here in Mexico Beach, the southeast part of it anyway, and I flew the quadcopter. I couldn't believe I had this. I forgot. I was like, oh, man, I was there. And this was Alberto coming in. Here's Mexico Beach over here. Wow. I mean, if we only knew. I mean, talk about haunting, foreshadowing, whatever. This is another view. A lot of damage to these properties. It's worse the more west you go on Highway 98 there. But this is Alberto in late May. And if believe me, this will be in the documentary. You bet. There's the radar of where I was. This was Alberto. And who would have thought that we would begin here and end here as the season progressed in October there as Michael made landfall across that area. What else is in that folder? Oh, yeah, and of course we had Florence, so we went from, I'm not going to forget what happened in my neck of the woods. This is US 421. I took some aerial video. It's completely washed out. Now there's like a little temporary setup there, one lane open, etc. Florence, I tell you what, this is quickly forgotten by most people in the U.S. simply because of what happened with Michael and then, of course, the wildfires. But the rivers, some of them are still at flood stage, I kid you not, as a result of Florence, and then the rain just didn't let up this fall. Continual progressions of storms. You can see the highway that goes right through there. Devastating event was Florence. And then what else do I have here? Michael. Ended with Michael. This is from the hotel. Hampton Inn, the back wall blown out. I'm filming Category 4 conditions out there. Absolutely an incredible event. Something I will never, ever forget. And then this is what it looked like just out of near Tyndall Air Force Base as the sun went down that Wednesday evening. On my way back to Mexico Beach to try to get the camera system off the utility pole. And what a fate that turned out to be. What we captured, absolutely jaw-dropping. So there you go. That was my look back at the tumultuous, because of two storms. That's what it all came down to, just two of them. They say it only takes one. This year it took two. All right, so that's it. I appreciate everybody that hung out this hurricane season. I encourage you, obviously, to stick around in the off season. There's plenty to talk about. I noticed that a lot of times the YouTube stats will indicate people unsubscribing in the off season. I'm like, why even? And then they come back in the beginning of the season. Why do that? Just stick around. There's plenty going on. Trust me. But it's been a heck of a year. I appreciate everybody that's followed along. We accomplished a great deal. Some of it perhaps historic. I'm still working on that with some of the video data, and video is data. And I'm going to be working on that. In fact, I'm flying to the National Hurricane Center and meeting with some folks down there next week to talk about some of my work in Michael. I'll update you on that. But, yeah, stick around in the off season. Lots to talk about. I'll keep you updated on the documentary. Chipping away at it. It's going to be a couple more months before that is ready, but it will be an absolute masterpiece when it is ready. And, again, if you want to follow along on Patreon, no better time to do it than right now. You will be the first to see these updates in the future because they're going to be live. That's going to be real interesting. I'm going to start doing that next Monday. And then as soon as they're done, I'll save them. They'll render to YouTube, and they'll be available for public consumption out in the wild, so to speak. So, hey, thanks again for everybody's following along this year. It's been great. We have a lot of awesome things planned for next year, of course. Technology allowing, we'll keep moving forward. So that's it for this hurricane season. I am Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack.com. I'll talk to you again live and then recorded, of course, whenever you want to watch it. Starting next Monday, December 3rd. Have a great rest of your week. We'll speak again in a week.